So this is a T3500 Dell Precision T3500 workstation, and it does not have the UEFI option in the BIOS, so I'm forced to use legacy. So what we're going to do, since that T3500 does not have UEFI option in the BIOS, is I got a 240 gig SD for about 24 bucks. Can't really beat that. But you can see the size of it. I had to get this adapter right here, the OR code, and it just bolts right in. Let me pick this up, move it right here. And so once you get it, take the hard drive and insert it into this cavity right here. And in this case, I put in the screws from the back, and that'll hold it steady. So I'm going to do an Arch Linux, but I'm going to be using a SSD, which is going to require me to use GPT partitioning label. I don't see this a lot on YouTube, so if you have an old machine and you want to put an SSD in it, you're going to need to learn how to do this. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so we've made the transition now back over and I've SSH'd into the T3500 from my laptop. What I'm going to do, I'll show you what we're going to do first. Minimize this. Let me bring up my terminal. First thing you will have to do is find out if you have SSH installed on your system. Here you can do it a couple different ways. You can pacman -q and then open SSH, and you can see I do have it. Now if you do not have it, you need to install it. Go in pacman-s and then open SSH. Once you do that, you need to find out if it's enabled or not working. So in order to do that, let me go ahead and just get in the sudo here. In order to do that, you need to go systemctl status. Whoops, you gotta spell it right. Status sshd. Hit enter. Now you can see here it is installed on this system, but it's not active. See right here, it's inactive. But what you need to do is Q to get out of that. Control L to clear the screen. What you'll need to do, if it's installed but not active, you'll need to say systemctl enable sshd, and then you'll go happen now, and that will not only enable it so that it'll start up when you reboot, but it'll turn it on now. But I'm not going to do that. And so what I've done is I've SSH'd it over into this T3500 computer, and I'm going to basically install Linux on it, or Arch Linux on it, and you'll see and I'll try to explain some as we're going along here. So let me bring that back in full screen, hit play. Who am I? I'm signed in as root. I've already SSH'd over, by the way. And now I'm going to show you the command to find out if we're connected to the whatever device you're connected to via your IP address. It's SS space type symbol space grep space -i lowercase I space SSH, and you can see that I'm connected to 192.168.0, whatever that was. Alright, so now we're going to partition the disk. By the way, I've already ran time date ctl set -ntp true. And typical typing error here on my part. Here we're going to select GPT partition label. And my first partition, we're going to set up Now, I've heard anywhere from 18 megabytes up to 180 megabytes. I play it safe and just went 100 megabytes, and that's going to be a BIOS boot system. All right, now from now on, you can forget that partition even exists. Leave it alone. Don't mess with it. So I've enabled all the rest of the remainder of the hard drive. We're going to write it out, type in yes. Now we're going to quit. And now we have a second hard drive, which is SDB. Again, the GPT partition label. And the first thing on the first partition, it will be my swap space. And I'm going to give it 16 gigabytes of swap, which is very generous. This machine does have 24 gigs of RAM, so that's pretty generous. Anyway, the rest of it now will be set up as, basically we're going to set it up as a D drive or a data drive or a home partition. Now, if I LSB OK, we'll see that. And the first partition there is SDA1 with 100 megabytes, and we're not going to mess with it at all. Forget it's even there. And then the second one is SDB. We got 16 gigabytes of swap, and the rest of it's going to be our home drive. So we're good to go there. I don't know if you just saw it there, but run by had highlighted the time date CTL, and that's because I had put it in there before I started here. So now everything is going to be handled, treated just like it's a legacy BIOS boot. No difference. So it's telling me for some reason there was some swap file system on that hard drive, and I'm not sure why, but anyway, I told it to go ahead and we make a file system of a .ext4, and that's on SDA2. SDA1 was at 100 megabytes that we'll forget about. So the next partition in line will be the swap, which was on SDB1. Going to make swap. Now we're going to turn on the swap on, or /device SDB1. Now we got to format the remainder of that drive. And again, like I said, this is completely in line with the legacy installation. So if you don't have the option for UEFI in your old computer, but you want to run a SSD, this is the way to do it. If you run an Arch Linux. Now we're going to mount those drives. The first one I'm going to mount will be SDA2, and that'll be mounted to /MNT, basically your C drive. Now we're going to make a directory, MNT home. See, this is just like legacy boot or legacy install. Now we'll mount that device to the directory we just created, or folder that we just created. Now LSB OK, show you that we have mounted our system. SDA2 is mounted, SDA3 is mounted, or SDB2 is mounted as mount home. The SDC, that's the USB that I booted up to on the remote machine. Now, before I run my pacstrap command, I like to go into the pacman.conf file and make a little changes here. Now, I'll have to redo this once I get into once we arch to root or change root over to the hard drive, we'll have to redo this. But by doing this, it allows me to see how far along in the download procedure we are. I kind of like keeping up with it. And I'm going to go down to the bottom, and even though I'm not going to install multi-lib right now, just a habit of going ahead and uncommenting multi-lib. Now we're going to sync the databases. As you saw, that was pretty quick.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see every couple tries to stop.
Dialog, WP Supplicant Wireless Tools, NetCTL, and iNet Utils. And I get those because I'm using Wi-Fi. And if I need anything, it'll already be there. And the next step is the GenFS tab. As soon as this gets through. I skipped over most of the installation there, so we didn't have to sit through it. I watched it, but no reason you having to watch it. Control-Shift-V, I will paste that into my terminal. Now, the wiki recommends that you check that it's done, so I do, out of habit again. So we're going to cat that, and there we go. We got unique universal IDs for the drives that need it. Now it's time to arch to root. Get off of the ISO and into the system. Arch-to-root /MNT. Now we're on our hard drive. First thing we're going to do is remove our local time. That might be there from default. All right, we'll add our own local time. In this case, for me, it's America, Chicago. Sure that's spelled right, and it is. Hit enter. Next thing, we're going to set up the hardware clock. --syst OHC space --UTC. All right. Now we're going to select our locale by going nano space /etc /locale.gen. I'm going to go ahead and redo my pacman.conf file while I'm here, so I don't have to do it later, but I'll already be done when I boot into my freshly installed new system. And now, since I will be installing multi-lib-devel, I'm going to make sure we get the multi-lib here in the pacman.conf. So if you have any 32-bit programs, they will work. All right, so now let's go pacman SYY and resync the databases since I just added a new repository. So now we're going to get to our location, locale, nano etc locale.gen. And we're just going to stop right there under examples and uncomment the US ISO and the US UTF. Control O, enter, Control X, locale-gen. We're going to let the computer generate its locales, and as you can see, it works. Now we're going to echo that same, in my case, language equals English US.UTF-8. We're going to put that in locale.conf. Now we're going to export that. I gotta say, copying and pasting is really nice. Now we're going to add a host name, which is whatever your machine will be called. If you're looking it up on, if you're trying to SSH into it or find it on the network, you'll need a name, and that's where this comes in. And in this case, I'm going to name it T3500. That's a capital T. Here you can use dots, dashes, anything you need, and it would be no problem, just as long as you recognize it. Now we're going to edit our hosts with plural file, and we're going to add these lines. 127.0.0.1 tab localhost, then ::1 tab localhost. And I'm going to go ahead and just type these in. But 127.0.1.1 tab, our host name, which was capital T3500, period, local domain, then tab, and repeat your host name. We're going to Control O, enter, Control X to get out of nano. All right. Next step, password for the root user. Now this is on the remote machine, not on your host machine. Type the new password. It was updated successfully. Now I'm going to add a user, which is going to be me. That's no surprise. There's a lot of groups here, and you could probably just get away with putting yourself in the wheel group like a lot of people do. I just don't like having to run across a problem after I get through installing and then have to run across the problem. So if I go ahead and put myself into these groups, then I don't have those problems. And I can't get groups by typing in GRUOPS. I have to type in groups. So just to verify that Dennis is in all those groups. Now Dennis needs a password. We'll type a new password and update it. So now Dennis is going to need sudo rights. So I'm going to go ahead and get that by typing in editor, all caps, equals nano, no space, BISUDO, by sudo. Under root, I'll have to put my name or the username that I want to have sudo rights. Capital ALL equals parentheses, capital ALL, colon, capital ALL, parentheses, space, no passwd, all caps, colon, space, ALL. Hit enter to create that little gap there. Uncomment the wheel group and the next one down. And I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. And I'm going to repeat the Dennis equals all, no password, all. Now this syntax has to be perfect. If it's not, you'll mess this up and you can't get back into it without a lot of headaches. So be careful with what you do here. Now we're in nano, so that'll be Control O, enter to confirm, Control X to get out of here. Apparently the syntax was all good. Now I'm going to update the databases one more time. All right. I'm going to enable the network manager so that we'll have internet when we do connect. Now on this T3500, I don't have it direct Ethernet. I have a Wi-Fi. So when I did the pack strap, that's why I included all those extra abilities. Now I'm going to find out, make sure what kernel I used. And if you had any other kernel, this is the main kernel, 5.11.2. So if you had another kernel, it would say like Arch LTS or Arch Zen. But in this case, I have the Linux kernel. So it's make init CPIO space -P space, and then whatever kernel you had. In this case, again, it was the Linux kernel. So now we're going to install grub. As you see, everything is just like in if you was installing in legacy mode. The only thing was the initial partitioning. So grub, we installed grub. Now it's grub -install space --target equals i386 -PC space /device /SDA --recheck. And then we're going to run the grub -make config or mk config -o boot grub.cfg. And we're basically done. Just going to run a real quick check, make sure there's nothing left to do. I'll go ahead and install my desktop. So first thing I'm going to need is the X drivers. Press enter for that. Next thing we'll get is the desktop. And by the way, this does have NVIDIA drivers. And I forgot to install them. So when I booted up first time on the T3500, I got pretty much an unreadable screen. So I I booted back into the Arch ISO on the USB, Arch rooted back over to the drive, and then installed the NVIDIA drivers. And I'll probably put those in the text here somewhere as a title so you can see exactly what I installed. All right, that's over with. Need a window manager so we can log into it. We got to enable that. Systemctl space enable space lightdm dot service. Hit enter. Got us. We created a symlink to prove that it was done in user library systems. And that's it. I forgot to Control D to exit, or exit to exit, and then unmount. Okay, so I'm back. This is my new desktop. This is the 240 gig SSD. If I do a LSBOK, you'll see SDA1. There's that 100 megabyte partition, but it's not mounted. There's nothing. And we got SDA2, which is the SSD hard drive. Then I got my swap on SDB, the second hard drive, and the rest of it there is my home partition. And I have everything set up in my system. There again, you can see I got 17 gigs used on my hard drive root. And here I've got 131 gigs already copied over to the home partition. Now you can see I got my menu set up with all my programs. File manager, which is Thunar. We got FeatherPad. Mousepad comes in by default. We got GNOME disk. OBS Studio, which I'm using right now. Kdenlive, which I happen to prefer as a flat pack. We got Krita, Audacity, Simple Screen Recorder, GUVC View, System Monitor, Calculator, and Time Shift. System Monitor, bring that up. See, this is my T3500 workstation. Got a 6-core processor with 6 threads, so it shows up here as 12, which is kind of deceiving a little bit, but works for me. I give it 16 gigabytes of swap. It is active, so all my systems are go. Right now, with OBS running and recording and some other stuff I just got through playing around with, it's using 1.2 gigabytes of RAM. Close that out. There's nothing else for me to do. I've got my menu, got all my stuff set up. I'm ready to start being productive. This is pretty neat. So if you have an old machine and you want to install a SSD, or you want to use a solid state drive in an older machine, you'll need to partition that small little section for BIOS boot. And like I said, I'm not sure. I've read different things on how small or how large. I think I actually seen where one recommended 8 megabytes. I seen one that recommended 512 megabytes. 100 megabytes seems to work just fine. And 100 megabytes, what's that gonna do? Kill you? If you get that tight on data space availability, then you probably need to get a thumb drive or another means to get some of that off of there. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'm Dennis. This has been my life, home, and my Linux journey. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.